Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Francine Starr, and welcome to Live and Local. Tonight is a video response to extensive list of Ron Paul's shocking political positions with links. I am battling it out with my, I guess friend, Know My Plant for me. You'll see his URL in the video about some of his videos. So let's take his questions at one at a time, or shall I say his statements. First, I want to start out with that it's incredibly difficult to teach someone what liberated feels like. It's really hard to explain to a person what freedom really is. But I'm going to do my best. Although the video producer of the video that I'm replying to does say that Ron Paul has some disgusting points of view to him, he does have a right to express his freedom of speech, y'all. He also agrees Ron Paul has brought up some issues that do need to be discussed. That is good. Also, in a way, people, I do appreciate the producer for pointing out all the bad that he can muster up about Paul, because it better arms me and my friends to talk about those issues at our Ron Paul meetup groups, so we can better plan out how to face Obama in November of 2012. Well, this is what I have to say to him. He's talking about this Ron Paul's position on the Civil Rights Act of 1969. And this is what I have to say. Slavery was abolished long before the Civil Rights Act of 1969. The reason Ron Paul cannot support an act like that is, well, sadly, it is unconstitutional for a governing body to force a citizen to allow another citizen on their private property. That is a breach of our freedom of choice, people. Next, the producer is accusing Ron Paul of being racist. He's saying things like Ron Paul hates black people and Ron Paul has bad things to say about Martin Luther King, which could not be further from the truth. Ron Paul, he's just like, people are people. It's about the Constitution. It's not a race war prediction that Ron Paul has. It's a food war. No, stop trying to put blacks against whites in your videos, or Jewish against Christians, or anything else like that. This election is not about color or skin or race or religion or anything like that. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, it's not. It's about the reinstatement of our Bill of Rights, and not that much more. We are all one people, but we should never be forced to allow anyone access to our private property without a search warrant. I really don't want to hear anything more about black and white and he said, she said stuff here, Noam. I want to see you stick to some provable facts. And then next, he's accusing Ron Paul of specifically stating that he wants to break all alliances with Israel. And that is also not true. I cannot agree with him on this at all. Paul does want to cut foreign aid across the board for everyone. However, seeing how Israel is starting all those battles in the Middle East, I can agree to drop Israel as an alliance and pick up a few more alliances like, let's say, Palestine, Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Libya. Whoever else is being brutalized by Israelis and Israel. Next, the producer of that video is saying Paul wants to end Medicare altogether, and he wants to end this and Social Security and everything. Well, people, wake up. Our Social Security system was been broken for a long time. There is no money. The Federal Reserve spent it all. Paul does not want to, quote, end Medicare altogether. Just Part D, which is the prescription drug coverage. It is a rip-off at $8,000 per person per year with a $1,000 deductible. Paul feels we citizens can buy better prescription drug coverages privately, entering the free market. Again, freedom of choice comes into play here. Social Security, well, people, it's broke. And we're trying to fix it. Paul does want to give the younger workers of America an opt-out right, which is pretty cool. And protect those already on Social Security from having to pay monopolized higher federal premiums. We should have freedom of choice here also, people. Obamacare and Romneycare take away our freedom of choice in medical providers. We're going to be forced to take their drugs, whoever the Federal Reserve decides for us to take. We have to take their drugs, we have to see their practitioners, and you're going to have to wait in line for it. But don't think you're going to get this for free, because most certainly those people like me that are on Medicare and on Social Security, we understand that we have to pay premiums to the government, and we would really appreciate some more free market in our abilities to pay our copays. Okay, so next he's going to trying to point out that Ron Paul doesn't want any sexual harassment laws on the books. Well, that's a straight up lie. Okay, sexual harassment laws on a federal level should never exist. We do not want the federal government to determine the definition of sexual harassment. We do have state laws that protect us. In other words, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. If somebody is harassing you in any way, sexual or otherwise, call the police department. That's what we're, as a state, paying them to do. The producer brings in his favorite choice of the decade, Rick Santorum. And yes, we all know that Sticky Rick wants to outlaw abortion and family planning. This brings into play a double-edged sword. If the federal government mandates contraception, i.e. abortion or anything else in family planning, at a later date in history, or shall I say the future, the Fed can also force contraception or require permits to have children. Ron Paul takes this particular double-edged sword out of play altogether on a national level. Ron Paul, this says that this is a state issue, and the states are perfectly capable to mandate this issue by taking this one sword out of the equation nationally. Humans will be free to procreate as they want to according to their state laws. A person is free to move out of the state, but they cannot move out of the federal government, you see. So that's why we don't want to have the federal, tell us what all our rights should be. We have these freedoms and we need to maintain them. And that is what Ron Paul is all about. Ron Paul is about reinstating our civil liberties and our Bill of Rights and the Constitution. Thank you. Well, anyway, until the states want to secede from the Union, that is, but then we're going to have another problem. Then he wants to, cut up Ron Paul's position on, let's say, drugs and prostitution. Well, the federal government should never force anyone to live outside of the laws of their state because it infringes on that person's freedom of choice and that state's freedom of choice also. If your state says it is okay, then it should be okay. The big pharmaceutical companies pay a lot of money to the federal government to continue their monopoly on prescription medications. By lifting the federal regulations on drug control, holistic medicine can come to the surface, and you will also retain your right to drink raw milk. In closing, Noam has asked us to request links to his evidence. Bring it on, cuz we want to see it all of it. We want to see Ron Paul saying all this stuff. We don't want to hear he said, she said BS from media cats like that you're using right now because they're all one-sided and they're paid lobbyists. We want to hear Ron Paul saying this stuff. So you go ahead and you do that and you research Ron Paul and you will maybe you will begin to understand what it's like to have freedom of choice in your life. And on that note, you know how to close your show. Believe in Jesus, dude. Because if you believe in Jesus, you have your freedom. And we should be free here, too. Good night, rock and rollers. We'll see you later.